So you wanted to learn Spanish and you started to learn Spanish. Maybe you got an app. Maybe you got an Anki deck. Maybe you started watching Spanish videos on YouTube. You started learning some nouns. You started building up a library in your mind of vocabulary words. And maybe you worked on your pronunciation. You got pretty good. But pretty soon you realized there was a looming obstacle. There was a roadblock. If this was a video game, the final boss is ahead of you and you don't know what to do. Well, what I'm talking about, of course, is verb conjugations, if you haven't already guessed. It's everybody's obstacle. It's kind of a roadblock for everyone trying to learn Spanish. And the reason is because unlike nouns or phrases or greetings, you learn an infinitive form of a verb and then it suddenly morphs into dozens of additional verb forms. And that's intimidating. That's hard. And we don't have that problem in English. So when an English speaker goes from English to trying to learn and speak and think in Spanish, that's a lot of words that we're suddenly confronted with. And it's hard. But I don't want you to despair. This is not impossible. Other Spanish learners have gotten past this mental block. They've gotten past the initial challenge and then they've gotten comfortable with verb conjugations. And you can do that too. You've got technology, you've got me to help you right now, and you can rest assured that this is doable. So while conjugations might look hard, I'm going to help you win this game with 3 recommendations. These are very simple recommendations that will help you beat the final boss of Spanish. Recommendation number 1, focus on only 2 verb forms. I want you to start simple. Until you become more advanced, just focus on learning these 2 verb forms. They are, first of all, preterite form or the past tense, and then I want you to learn the present indicative, you might hear it referred to, or present tense. Just those 2, past tense and present tense. You will learn other verb forms eventually, but we'll save that for later. So now it's just those 2 verb forms, which brings us to recommendation number 2. I want you to study only a small number of verbs, just a handful of regular AR, IR, and ER verbs. So for you to learn the pattern, I just want you to learn 1 or maybe 2 of each of those, and that's it. So I have some suggestions for the AR verbs. I would recommend comprar, preguntar. For the ER verbs, comer, aprender. And then for the IR verbs, vivir and partir. So that's not a whole bunch of verbs, but that will teach you the basics. It will show you what the patterns are, the consistent patterns of regular verbs, at least. And then we're going to add a few of the essential irregular verbs. And we're just doing this out of necessity because you might as well learn them sooner rather than later. And those are going to be a few AR verbs, a few ER verbs, and a few more IR verbs. So that list comes out to 22 verbs if you're copying down the list that you saw on the screen. And that's still a pretty small number. If you know these verbs in those 2 tenses, you'll be off to a really good start. And what you're going to find is if you're consuming a lot of Spanish language media, you're going to start picking up other verbs and understanding them. If you just study the ones I gave you, you're going to automatically almost add the other ones to your brain. But let's go to recommendation number 3. And this has to do with how you're going to even do this. And that is study simply. So I really need to answer 2 questions here. What materials should you study? Well, these are going to be simple materials. If you're going to study simply, you don't need a lot. You are going to need a verb reference of some kind. I recommend a book, but you can use a website. You can use an app. You're going to need some index cards to make flashcards. You're going to need a notebook, and I would like you to have a dictionary. What I want you to do with these materials is I want you to write each verb infinitive, the basic form, on a flashcard, and I want you to put the English definition on the back of the card, but on the front of the card, underneath the infinitive, I want you to put the conjugations. So when you've made your cards, that's the hard part. Then comes the easier part of this, which is just reviewing them, and I want you to do that on a simple schedule, and that answers the question of when and how often, every morning for 5 minutes. That's a pretty simple schedule. While you're drinking your coffee or eating your waffles or whatever it is in the morning, it should take about 5 to 10 minutes to do that. So while you're doing that, review some flashcards. And then every night for 5 minutes before you go to sleep, review your flashcards. And then you're not going too hard on yourself, but you're reinforcing. And if you're consistent with this habit, your brain is going to learn these words. You're going to internalize them. And that's it. That's pretty much all you need to do. You can add to this the notebook, but for the most part, all I want you to do is review your flashcards consistently for 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night. And I promise you, in 2 months, you will know all these verbs. 6 weeks approximately for 22 verbs. And once you know them, it opens up the entire world of the other verbs, the regular ones at least. But that list of irregulars is going to get you really far. You will beat the final boss of Spanish, and conjugations will seem much easier after you get over this initial block. So you got this. If this video helped you, I'd like you to press the like, and if you could please subscribe, that would help helped me a lot. And go get busy. Go have fun and eat some tacos.